Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where Destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy!
Welcome back to Three Films and a Podcast, and we're going to start this baby off with a little visual exercise that we like to do. And I'm going to invite you, if whoever's listening out there, to stop where you are, close your eyes, regardless of what you're doing. If you're driving a car, it's okay. Just close your eyes for a second. Things will be okay.
Heavy machinery.
We need to, yeah.
Keep going.
It'll be quick. I'll be quick. So it'll be okay.
Jesus, take the wheel.
That's right.
Gandalf, take the wheel.
I'm taking you back to December 2003. It is that sweet season where the winter blockbusters are starting to come out weekly, and you've got one thing on your mind: epic battles. That's what's going on in the movie industry right now, and you can't wait to get back in the theater to see one. And you know what? You're even pickier. You want to see a skillful swordsman in foreign countries fighting for honor and for the well-being of those close to them. So you hurriedly purchase your ticket, and you can't help but wonder what Academy Award nominations this picture might get. And you know what? I understand if you thought that I was referring to The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise and Ken Watanabe. But I'm actually referring to Lord of the Rings, Return of the King by Peter Jackson, which ended up being nominated for 11 Academy Awards and winning all 11.
Did it really?
Sweep.
It won every. It was a sweep.
Whoa.
It was a sweep.
That's awesome. That is
so
awesome.
Here, ready to chat all things Return of the King, are Tyler up in Salt Lake City.
There may come a day when we stop this podcast, but it is not this day.
And Ben Lawhorn up in Salt Lake City.
Well, I'm here. I'm back. Wait, what's the line? Fuck, I screwed it up. I've seen it once. Cut me some slack. I don't know. I'm here.
Just edit it in.
Yeah.
Just so
whatever
the clip.
the line is, I'm going to say. Whatever the right one was.
Well, I'm back.
And I'm hosting today's episode. I'm Matt Weiler down in the city of trees, Pleasant Grove, Utah. We are Three Films and a Podcast. We're three folks challenging each other and all of you to watch movies you've never seen before. This is a movie that two of us that I've mentioned have seen before. Ben, this is his first experience. We'll get onto that later. But you can find us anywhere you find pods on social media at Three Films Pod. The Return of the King concludes our Lord of the Rings trilogy, but it also concludes the Lord of the Rings round of our trilogies series. For the unlikely listener out there who's unaware of the source material of Lord of the Rings was adapted from books by J.R.R. Tolkien. The books, carry the same name. They tell of the historical happenings of Middle-earth and the efforts of several races and nations to prevent a great evil from obtaining a great weapon, which is this ring. And Return of the King sees an end to several different story arcs within this great big story. So with that all said, in addition to your thoughts on this movie, I would love to hear all of your guys' favorite storyline in the trilogy, and how you felt it concluded. And I would love to first hear from our guest, Noor-Hal.
Thank you for giving me the chance. Well, I truly enjoyed Return of the King as the ending of this trilogy, and even more by watching the extended edition, it allowed me to understand some of the bits of the storyline that I had seen on the theatrical version. Just to put you a little bit on context, I saw it for the first time during the pandemic. I hadn't seen them before, and it was like a running joke with my friends because whenever you want to watch Lord of the Rings, and I was like, to understand the memes and such. But I was aware of the relevance and the importance. But for any reason or another, yeah, well, I'll watch it later. But obviously, with the pandemic and everyone inside, well, this is the perfect time, and I truly enjoy it. I think as the closing chapter of this trilogy, it made a great job closing all the storylines we saw from the beginning from Fellowship of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And and at the same time gave me a lot of feelings. Of course, I ended up crying at the end. It has an emotional.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah, like like you mentioned, but it has a lot of emotional moments. But at the same time, even funny moments. I one of the things that I loved was the camaraderie between Gimli and Legolas. I love that they were like,
so
but that only counts as one, and they were back and forth. But yeah, it was such a fantastic. I totally understood why it won. Like you guys mentioned a little bit before, it swept on the Oscars because it had like obviously considering. I've heard some comments, people here and there, like, well, the CGI and whatnot, but it was 20 years ago, and perhaps my eye is not as critical to that point of view, like of detail, but I thought it was amazing and I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. Well, I think they did so much of the effects practically that it helps everything hold up. They didn't lean completely on the computer in in the ways that like what we talked about last round with the Matrix. Like I feel like Peter Jackson stayed true to the physical nature of the way and the practical effects that they used to make the movie. And maybe it's because they filmed these all at one long stretch. So maybe it was just easier, and it was but I think that helps forgive some of the CGI that doesn't hold up quite as bad. But to your point, I think it holds up pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they kind of like were creating stuff for this. I mean, and now like Weta Digital is like where people go for this. Like, isn't that where they're doing all the Avatar stuff? Is like at Weta Studios. Like, I think
I'm not sure
they're handling all that. Like, I don't know. It's super impressive everything they pulled off. Yeah, if you want to be very critical, you can see stuff, but it's just like, man, for 20 years ago, like it was great, and I think it still holds up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Gollum still looks real to me.
Yeah.
Like I can very easily forget that Gollum is CGI. Like you can tell, but like the character is so well realized and the movements are so well done that it's still immersive enough that you buy into it.
Yeah, I had a blast. This was so cool. I'm glad that we finally watched this, or I finally watched it, I guess. Like, I'm glad we got to check it out. It was, it's a great ending to this trilogy. It definitely makes sense, like why it won everything, why it swept. I think I'm kind of with you guys both, right? I do think Two Towers might have been my favorite out of the three. They all have great stuff, but I mean, this was just like so big. The extended edition, I think the runtime is like 4 hours and 23 minutes.
It's a lot.
Granted, like 40 minutes of that is the credits, but still, it's like it's a very long movie, but well worth it. I really enjoyed everything in this. Like I can't think of anything where it's like, oh, that didn't really work for me. Like even with these extended editions, I'm like, yeah, they made everything make sense, which was awesome. And like the callbacks from like Fellowship where Sam's like making eyes with the bartender girl, it's like, oh cool, now we can wrap it up 9 hours later, like I think it was really good. Man, I don't have anything like smart to say about it other than just like I liked it. Like I thought it was a blast. It's it was long, but I wasn't like, oh, we're still going. It's like, no, this was it was paced well, which sounds crazy to say for a 4-hour movie. It wasn't, there was no moment of like, man, this is really dragging. I was like, no, I thought it was great.
So I'm curious because my answer to Matt's question probably would have changed. Well, it has changed, and I'll explain a little bit, but I'm curious, Ben, like being your first time all the way through, like which storyline of yours did you enjoy the most?
I mean, it feels like a real basic answer, but man, Sam and Frodo, just like their dynamic. Like I mentioned it in the Fellowship episode that I didn't realize like Sam didn't necessarily like, he wasn't like dying to go. You know what I mean? It was like, I'll come with you, and same with like Merry and Pippin. It was just like, Gandalf's like, I got a thing for you to do, like go with him. He's like, okay. And it felt like they I don't know that they were like the best of friends in Fellowship. It's just like they were kind of, I'm sure they were friends. I don't know how many people there are in the Shire, but it's like, I don't think they were like BFFs or anything. And then by the end of this, Sam's like, I was getting emotional watching it. It's like, I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you. I was like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? You're gonna carry about this mountain?
I know.
Like, holy shit. Like, I loved it. Like, even right now, my eyes are kind of welling up. I'm like, dude, that's so fucking cool. But it's just like, again, like going back to like, one more step. This is the furthest I've ever gone. And on this like grassy knoll, it's just like a super chill, big moment. And now we're on the side of a fucking volcano. And he's like, I'm going to carry you up here.
Not just a mountain volcano, it's Mount Doom. It's like,
Mount Doom.
There couldn't be a more foreboding place.
Well, I think Peter Jackson did a really good job of delivering on that relationship and the growth and the delivery of those lines. Because even earlier in the film, when like Frodo's asking about the Lambros bread and like rationing, and there's just a little exchange there where he's like, well, what, like, we've got this much left. He's like, yeah, well, we got to save some for the way, for the road home. Yeah. It's like, oh man, everything already feels hopeless. And here's Sam thinking like, yeah, we're making it home, buddy.
Yeah. I love that. And like, they're dynamic, but also, throwing in Smeagol, whatever. And then like Sam having to deal with that. And it's like that whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, someone did it. I love it.
Yes.
My precious. Sorry.
No, I love it. Just like Sam having to like go with that dynamic because like Frodo understands like what Smeagol's kind of going through and Sam doesn't, but then they have their like, it's not like a love triangle, it's like a friendship triangle, and it's just like Sam's like, no, like I only want the best for you, and like Frodo's like, no, I get it, but like we have to bring him, like this guy's here. It's like I don't know, it was kind of, I don't know. I loved how their relationship developed throughout. And again, just like all the way to the very end where, he sends him off and it's just so touching. Like
I'm the Smeagol of our podcast. Tyler's the Samwise, Ben's the Frodo.
Take that back.
Ben's just like, please trust me. We have to bring this guy. Tyler's like, no, let me kill him.
Matt, you're an indispensable part of this podcast. I won't hear you slander yourself. No, I love that answer, Ben, because I think that's one of my favorite things about this story and these movies is those were my same thoughts the first time through too. And what I'm about to say isn't to invalidate what you're saying, because I agree with you 100%. But the interesting thing is, since all the characters are so well fleshed out and there's so many cool storylines, even small ones, like we don't get Faramir until halfway through the Two Towers, you know what I mean? And that's an interesting storyline you can follow. But so like the story on the answer to this question for me has changed over time, because in the next time it was more geared towards just the Fellowship and like Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. And then the next time it shifted to such and such. And then this time I really attached more to Pip and Merry than I ever have.
Merry,
and their little arc was like way more important to me than it has been in the past. And in the past it's like, yeah, whatever. They're like the two like twins or whatever that just tag along. And then this time they were like a crucial part of the experience for me. And actually like my empathy towards Gollum grows each time I watch it, because you start to realize kind of what Frodo realized, like Frodo knew what Gollum had been through, right? Like Frodo's had this ring for a year and it's killing him. And Gollum had this thing for hundreds of years or whatever. I don't know what the timeline is. So I'm not to say that you didn't have empathy for Gollum, you know what I mean? But it's just like, it's for me, the storylines that I attach to most changes every time. And so I'm excited that now you get to take that journey for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Same. For me, it's been only like the theatrical first, and then this time the extended editions. And every time you pick something different. And well, this time was the camaraderie between them and Aragorn's storyline. I think it's really endearing how that scene when he faces his mind with Sauron with the, I forgot the name of the crystal ball, but it was fantastic. And when the mouse comes out and shows a Mithril like, Frodo is dead, and he's like, I don't think so, and he cuts the head, and that was such a moment of yes, do it.
It was so good. And he shows like, it's just amazing how impactful they can make him as a leader, because when they're literally surrounded by people and he's like, all right, for Frodo. And he starts running. It's like, yeah, okay, let's go. Let's do it. It's just like, yeah, I'll follow you into whatever you want. So yeah. The whole, that storyline was fantastic.
Yeah. I love that. For me, and I already said this under the Fellowship, I feel like from a movie standpoint, if I were trying to get like film bros to watch this movie, I would show them the theatrical cut. I feel like those are tighter releases of the stories. Yeah. But for people who just want to hang out in Middle Earth and get a little more into the lore and some of the weird stuff with this trilogy, the extended cuts are an experience, and I loved sitting through all of them, and I look forward to doing them again. I've watched the theatrical cut of The Hobbits, which I wasn't high on the first time I saw. I really enjoyed them the second time I saw them, but I have not gone through the extended version of them. So I'm looking forward to doing that at some point.
So can I ask a question about the extended cuts? Because like, I assume all of you guys have seen the theatrical at some point, but so like Saruman just wasn't in it, like in the theatrical cut. So I was reading the trivia that like whatever, like Christopher Lee was like giving Peter Jackson shit because he didn't realize that he got cut out of the movie until like the premiere. And he made a joke about it when he came to the Hobbit premiere. He's like, did you leave my part in this time? So like, do they just totally not deal with any of that shit?
A lot of his arc was cut, but he's still in it. And honestly, like I always felt like he was a very strong presence. Even what they had in the theatrical cut, I thought was a very prominent role.
I have the same memories,
but I didn't realize how much screen time they did cut from his arc. But I don't really miss it from the theatrical cut. But it's fun to see.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was like, man, he's such a presence as an actor and stuff, and I can't imagine cutting his stuff. So it's like, what did they do? And
honestly, with this, I think this might have been the first time I've seen the the extended cut of Return of the King all the way through. And one of the things I thought was rewarding was that scene with Saruman and Wormtongue on top of the tower, and sort of that exchange with Theoden. And it's cool to see, like, here's these like two really bad dudes.
Yeah.
And everyone at the bottom is like, hey, come down. Like, let's work through this. Like, relax, let's make the right choices now. Like, let's start. Let's hit reset. Let's do this over. It was just cool to see that type of grace given. You don't often see that with villains who have already made really, really bad moves.
Yeah. And so I saw that like earlier in Two Towers, right? When he lets that dude go and like doesn't kill him. It's like, why wouldn't you kill it? Why you just let him out? And so to see it later on, it's like having that empathy. But I will say Saruman's death was brutal. Like,
yes.
Oh, get impaled.
Matt,
I was like,
you said that like you talked about grace, and it's like you're right. Like grace followed by like whatever the opposite of is.
Yeah.
Like
that was so gnarly.
I forgot that
they gave him a chance.
Yeah.
There was some like brutal moments in here. Like, I know it's all CGI, and I know I'm not going to say whatever their right name is, but there's one scene where the big ass elephant like stomps this horse, and it's just like, I know all of that was CGI. I was like, holy shit, that was so gnarly to see that.
I actually forget how much of that kind of violence there is in this movie, like especially in the Minas Tirith battle scene. But you just see people falling off of the third level, and a lot of movies cut on the impact, but you just watch these guys bounce off roofs and stuff. I was like, holy shit, this is way more like not necessarily graphic, but just like intensely violent than I remember.
I watched this with my kids, and so
a lot of good Wilhelm screams.
When Saruman goes down, I'm like,
oops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops.
He's fine.
Totally.
He's just sleeping.
He's a wizard. It's fine.
It's just
catch up.
Yeah, he's wizard stuff. They do this.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to comment on, we talked a little bit about this in our 2 hours or two Towers episode, which was almost 2 hours long.
The 2 hour Two Tower.
in the Two Towers, we just talked about how perfect Peter Jackson was able to capture this on screen. How much justice, like you can't even imagine this book being done any other way anymore.
Right.
There were some cartoons released beforehand that tried to do it, and I think they did an okay job, with what they had. But now it's like there's no going back with the score and the visuals. And I just wanted to comment on that we didn't mention last time. Peter Jackson's direction on these actors and the facial acting, and especially like the emotion he was able to procure out of the eyes.
Yeah.
I thought was like pretty noteworthy, because you have like these really muddy faces, these really like really moody and sort of like grimy scenes where like, and the shine off of these eyes are just like really noteworthy. I thought super awesome.
Yeah, he did.
I agree.
And the arc that I think I resonated most with was Aragorn's. There's something just so cool about this. I mean, it's kind of like Simba going back to Pride Rock, but like,
totally.
You know, he's back, and the things that he has to go through to like fully return. It was cool, the things that he did, like coming back with the Ghost Army, you know, like taking on the mantle, like you will answer to me. Yeah. Seeing that blossom on the tree on Gondor. Like all these cool little tidbits that were included on there. It's like, oh man, he's back. Yeah. Let's usher in this. Let's usher in the Age of Man.
The statue, the head of the crown.
Oh yeah.
Sam said, "Oh yeah,
so cool.
The king has crown again.
The king has a crown again.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And any arc that ends with Liv Tyler, it's a positive. Yeah. It's a win for sure.
I'll take that any day. Yeah. I mean, he's such a. You can't go wrong with like the unwilling or the not unwilling, but like the leader that didn't want to be the leader. You know what I mean? Like he didn't want any of that. But he just the reluctant. That's the word I'm looking for. Right, the reluctant leader. But he just can't help himself. He just has all that gravitas and that charisma, and he's just so brave and handsome. Oh, Viggo, my guy.
Viggo.
Oh yeah,
Joe Morgenstein.
So good.
Yeah, Aragorn. Yeah, he's one of the better characters. Let alone like not even just in this movie, but just in general.
Yeah. In general, narrative.
So our next segment is essentially, and this is tough because this is a trilogy that many people have seen, but like you, Noor-Hal and Ben, it sounds like until recently you guys haven't watched this this trilogy. So I imagine there's a lot of you out there that have not. Who have done the same thing that Ben and Noor-Hal have in putting off this trilogy. So this is for you guys. If you had to share one scene to try to convince them to watch this movie today, what would that scene be? You've got them in the we call this our elevator pitch. If you had them in the elevator, you had it on your phone, the way Peter Jackson intended for this movie to be seen. And he said, "Hey, look, check this movie out. I've got one scene for you. What scene are you showing, Noor-Hal?"
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
It is tough. It's a tough choice because, of course, my first choice would be maybe for Frodo when Aragorn goes against the orc. Yeah, but I think I'm going for one subtle scene when Aragorn walks towards Theoden's tent and you see this hooded figure and it ends up being Elrond. Oh. And I love the exchange between them because it goes back to what we just mentioned about being Aragorn being the reluctant leader. And what Elrond tells him, become who you were born to be. And that and takes so Anduril, the reforged sword, like, this is what you like, Excalibur. This is the sword you're going to take on the mantle. And then he goes to call the dead army. So this is, it tells you a lot what Aragorn is as a character and his potential. I'm going to talk about one of my frustrations when I watch the trilogy, Lord of the Rings, because I see Aragorn is what Jon Snow could have been, and he wasn't. Sorry about that. I'm still
he was
mad
so
about
close.
season 8.
He had his moment in the Battle of the Bastards when he draws his sword with the on-cut. Like, I was like, that was his Aragorn moment. That's what, like, I was like, Jon Snow for life with that scene. And then they just, we don't need to get into how much I disliked the last season of Game of Thrones.
But who tells the better stories?
They just pissed it
away. Exactly. But
Bran,
coming back to that scene, I think that was one of the, and actually also the piece of information that Elrond tells him, like, Arwen's fate is linked to the ring. So he has an extra motivator to go and fight and vanquish Sauron. Because
what if that wasn't true? What if Elrond's just like, how can I get Aragorn to do this? Oh, I know.
Exactly. Like I'm gonna throw that also to the mix for good measure, right? So.
And by the way, the love of your life is gonna die if you don't do this.
Well, one thing that I thought was interesting this watch is like Elrond's kind of there begrudgingly. Like he was fine, just like letting the elves go to the Great Haven.
Make a sword and go to fucking Minas Tirith.
That's why I connect with him so much.
Comes back and she's like, you need to go back to my boyfriend and convince him to do this. He's like, oh, fine.
I think that's why I connect with him.
He's just a grumpy old man. Like he's thousands of years old. He's like, oh God, I have to do everything.
Yes.
Why did my daughter have to bring home this guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Some ranger
just
from
another
the
guy.
Just a ranger.
My opinion of Elrond just changed so much. So I liked how you wanted to do the For Frodo scene as a battle charge and as an enticement to watch the movie, because I think everyone sort of is drawn to that moment, like the moment right before conflict, like what's about to happen. And so that's why I chose the scene that I did. I don't like to do scenes that are spoilery, and I also think that like the For Frodo charging scene, it really helps to have all of the backstory to make that moment pay off, right? So I wanted to choose a scene that would show like the type of like cinematography, choreography, and the type of battle stakes and the type of battle scene that you could expect from a movie like this. And so I chose the scene where Pippin is singing for Denethor as he sent he just sent his son Faramir off to die essentially, and it's just a beautiful scene. Like it's like we call them postcard scenes. Like you could take a frame from any point in that scene and put it on your wall or a postcard and it would work. The horses galloping in slow motion and the charge towards certain death with Pippin singing. I don't know what that song means. Well, I don't know what the words mean, but I know what the sound means. You know what I mean? It's just like total despair and just that's like the dark night of the soul moment, right?
The world ahead, and there are many paths to tread.
And so I think showing that scene to someone would be a really good MacGuffin. They would think, oh, that's got to be like the final battle, right? But it's like, no, that's literally like a third of the way through the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You have no idea what you're in for here. So, and like I said, I just attached so much more to Merry and Pippin on this time through. So that scene stuck out for me quite a bit.
I also love that we have that scene because of karaoke. I guess the co-writer went with a lot of the guys to karaoke bar and heard him sing. It's like, all right, well, we're gonna make you sing in the movie now.
So,
oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, what were you singing? That she was like, we need this in the movie. I love it. I think it's awesome.
Right.
Mine is with Gandalf and Pippin. I think it's when the orcs have like gone through the first level of is it Minas Tirith? That's where we're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, coming like banging down the walls and stuff like that, the doors, and Pippin's kind of freaking out. And just like the way that Gandalf calms him basically, and not like he doesn't be like, no, we're going to be fine. It's like, oh no, we're going to like, everything's going to be okay. It's just like his line, he says like, death is just another path, one that we all must take. And just kind of like, gets him to open up to the idea. It's like, listen, man, like this might be it, but it's not going to be it. Like might be it here, but that's not all we're going to get. Like there's stuff later on. And just like seeing Gandalf like calm Pippin and Pippin like, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. Like we can do this, and just like kind of get his steel back up. It's like, okay, all right, I'm ready for whatever's coming here. And just the way, obviously, like Ian McKellen can just like say anything and it sounds cool, but the way he's talking about like the gray rain curtain of this world rolls back and everything is silver glass. It's like, yeah, man, for sure. Like, kill me now, dude. Let's go. It's just like for Frodo. Yeah. It's like, yeah, all right, cool. Let's do this. So I really enjoyed that scene.
I didn't think it would end this way.
End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take.
and also because like the Merry and Pippin thing was so difficult. I think in this movie it's like they had to get divided, but then they both kind of found like new kind of partners or whatever. So I like seeing Pippin and Gandalf like kind of teaming up. So that's the scene that I would pick. I know it's like somewhat spoilery, but also it's just like we're in the third movie. There's going to be just tons of fighting. Like you don't know, like maybe they do die after this. Like who knows, whatever, but it's just like, I just really enjoyed that their connection, I guess, throughout that scene.
Nice.
Yeah, one thing I loved about all these answers is that they're all pivotal moments that just show how far each of these characters have come from the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Like these characters are almost like unrecognizable to the characters that they were in Fellowship. And so for them being where they are in these moments is like just such a testament to how great of a story arc each of them have had up to that point.
Merry and Pippin look so cool in their battle armor, like
I know,
like helmets and shit. They look rad. This is
it's
really
like
cool.
Finally by movie 3 they're ready to like fight for something.
Yeah. And the dude's like, oh no, this was
despite
mine when I
the
was a
weed and
kid,
ale
but-
that they've consumed through the trilogy.
They're ready to go.
They finally have the resolve to.
So cool.
There's so much better booze and drugs outside of the Shire. We have to fight for this, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can't let this go to waste. We just learned about it.
Yeah, that's right. I have a moment and I have an honorable mention. I guess my honorable mention first would be just because I love. I don't know if Peter Jackson just cut it this way. I guess as far as like being true to the novels, I don't know how many things he kept like. This happened in Return of the King, or if he took the completion of the trilogy and like split them up into his own 3 movies. I don't know. So if anyone knows and wants to comment, they can let us know.
Peter, hit us up. Like
Peter,
Hey, call us.
Peter, you have my phone number.
Let us know.
But one thing that I liked was in the Two Towers, Arwen and Aragorn kind of share these visions, or Elrond and Arwen actually are sort of having, I guess Elrond's relating his vision to Arwen about her future and what's going to await her and all that. And you find out in Return of the King that there's a child involved, and that changes the trajectory of everything, because ultimately what leads Elrond to go, pursue Aragorn and change, his mind on certain things. And what I liked about that is we see the great subversion of expectations in Empire Strikes Back, where Vader's like, I'm your father. And it's like, wait a second, why didn't Obi-Wan tell me this before? And like we give that so much credit for like being this great like subversion of expectations, and it was, but it almost feels similar to this coming from, Return of the King, the book. And I wonder if that had like a similar feeling reading it back then, like, oh, wait a second, there was a kid involved. And then like finding that out, changes everything. So I thought that was cool. That's my honorable mention. It's not the most exciting scene. I don't know if I could show it to someone and be like, hey, before Luke's expectations were subverted, Arwen's was.
These characters you don't know yet? Well, guess what?
Yeah. So I usually like gravitate towards something that just seems like weird or absurd, or something that just like I've never seen before ever in a movie. And I would use the Shelob scene.
Totally.
Where Frodo's fighting him, he gets stabbed, he gets like spun up, and then Samwise fighting Shelob up until when the orcs take Frodo. Just because that scene, that complete scene is just bonkers. Like, what's going on here? These two hobbits are fighting a spider. This guy gets spun up. He seems dead. He's not dead. And then Samwise is sitting behind the rocks like, crap.
Like, shit.
And so now, like, if I'm showing that to someone, they're like, well, what's going to happen now? Like, is he gonna go get him? Like,
you'd have no way of knowing if that's at the beginning of the movie, the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I remember Shelob had it was a big part of the trailer. I remember there was like a big moment in the trailer where you kind of see it. It's like a kind of like a quick little jump scare cut. And then I just remember that being a big part of the trailer. Like, oh shit, like what is it? Like exactly like you said. You never really seen anything quite like it. And like for me personally, I want to know what it looks like already, because it's scary,
I know,
Some real horror movements, because like when he like comes out of the shadows behind him, like I hated every second of that
Totally.
spider. I hated so much of it. Like, I was like, we got to get away from this dude. This is driving me fucking crazy. So, I mean, it was very impactful, but I was like, I'm not here for this at all.
Yeah.
So if I had showed that to Ben, he'd have been like, you know what? I think I'm good with the Two Towers. I'm not going to watch this movie.
I'm good. Yeah. I'll wait 20 years until it's been out for 20 years. Then I'll watch it. I'm not going to go see this.
So we like on this podcast to promote our friend Adam Driver's small business, his drive-in theater.
He's an entrepreneur.
I just had sex and I'm about to eat nachos! It's the greatest moment of my life!
He likes to throw in double features. He happens to show one of the movies that we're covering, every week.
It's a nice partnership we have.
So this week he's throwing up Return of the King. So if you haven't seen it, go to Adam Driver's Drive-In. He's showing it. But he also needs us to pair a movie with it. And so he wants something that the audiences are going to like to see with it. And he wants to hear why. And so I'm interested, Noor-Hal, what movie are you pairing with Return of the King?
Okay. Does it have to be Adam Driver movie? No.
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 Oh, okay.
Adam just owns the drive-in.
Oh, okay. That's perfect. Okay. Well, I would pair up. It would be a long showing because I would pair it up with Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
And I have a reason. I noticed something this time I rewatched Return of the King. I have no proof, but no doubts either, that the Russo brothers sort of inspired on Sam's and Frodo's relationship to embed some of the Sam Wilson actions with Cap.
Oh, I like
because
that.
there's moment, for example, this moment when Samwise gets to save Frodo from Gollum, and he says, "Let it go, you feel."
Totally.
It's like the on your left moment.
Captain Sam, can you hear me? On your left.
Yeah.
That when Sam
when he shows up, comes to save the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the end, when you see that Frodo gives the book to Sam before he leaves, it's kind of like old Cap giving his shield to.
Nice.
I like that.
That's a good call.
I mean, not at the same extent, of course, because we know that Sam becomes a new Cap and whatnot, but I can see some influence there.
There's definitely some parallels, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that connection. I was going to allow it just on the basis of like epic, final movies finales. With great battle scenes.
Yeah, and also
that was going to be enough to qualify for me, but
and also that the little guy, in this case Ant-Man, is the one who helps them, like the Hobbit. Yeah,
yeah. I love that. I mean, I would sit through both of those in a heartbeat. For myself, I kind of thought, I mean, obviously both of those on scale are huge. And in my mind, I was like, I think I want something a little bit smaller that I'm going to watch, like kind of relax afterwards. So I'm going to throw on Return of the King first, but then I'm going to throw on one of my favorite endings to a trilogy, which is Ocean's 13. Basically kind of the connection there is like, Danny Ocean and Terry Benedict are coming together to take down the greater evil, so we got like some forces kind of being combined here to take down, the bigger enemy here. It's on a very different scale. I'm aware of that, but it's also very intentional because I'm like, cool. Yeah. Let's just deal with Pacino and this one hotel. Like, let's do that. Let's not worry about like the existence of the world or anything. Like, I just want to see him get screwed over by this group who's doing stuff. Like, again, anytime I can get Brad Pitt on my screen, I'm going to take it. I love these Oceans movies. And I think, after they kind of missed the mark on Ocean's 12, they really kind of came back on Ocean's 13 and knocked it out. I like that movie quite a bit. Just a little more lighthearted. There's plenty of funny stuff in the Lord of the Rings. I really enjoyed, one of my favorites, I think, was Gimli's just like certainty of death, small chance of success. Like, what are we waiting for? Let's go. So I kind of let's
that
do
was like
it,
the
whatever.
Classic 90s, like, pulpy
it really was,
clip from like a trailer.
We always forget even right now, having just watched them, I always forget what happens in what movie. But is the salted pork moment in the beginning of this movie or the end of Two Towers? I think it's all hype. Like
I
when
think it's in this one.
they come
It's
up
in
on
this
Mary
one.
and Pippin. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's
salt.
this one.
He gets all drooly over salted pork.
Yeah. He's just sitting
Dimly
around doing
kills me.
nothing. He's like, hey, we got salted pork. It's like, all right, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, wait, hold on.
Yeah, so that's what I would go with. It's just, a different scale, a lot smaller, but just, take down the bigger enemy. So that's what
Like that.
Nice.
I was trying to go with a similar strategy with mine. I didn't quite accomplish it, but I actually am now realizing I don't think I've seen Ocean's 13.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah.
It's been a while for me too.
Pacino's like acting it up. Like he's
Yeah.
Pacino, but it works for this role because he's kind of this flamboyant casino owner. He's an older Terry Benedict and just kind of douchier. You know what I mean? Like he's exactly what you expect. So I think that's why he's like perfect in that role. And then, for like Terry to have to, begrudgingly team up with Danny. He's like, all right, fine, I'll help you only because selfishly it helps me. Like that kind of a thing. It's kind of cool to see that. So I would suggest it. I think it's really good.
Oh yeah, and that quote when Andy Garcia's character is looking at the mirror and Danny Ocean comes, "Are you ready? I was born ready." Oh my goodness.
Like he's suiting up like Cap. Yeah, I love it. So good.
Yeah.
I've never even seen it, and I love that moment.
That's so good.
I was having a hard time with this one, and then I realized that I still haven't seen any of the Hobbit movies, and so we're just gonna watch The Hobbit. I kind of like the idea of opening with The Hobbit and ending with Return of the King. It just makes me laugh to just do a whole bookend and like you just miss the beginning. Here's how it started. Here's how it ended. There's tons of stuff in the middle if you want to check it out.
I'd love to do that.
That'd be awesome.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
I mean, I do kind of like the idea of doing The Hobbit second, almost as like I've never seen it, so I don't really know, but it just seems like it'd be kind of a come down. And so if you didn't want to stick around and you need to go home and go to bed, you could skip The Hobbit. But if you stayed, it just like resets the timeline. So now you got to start again and go all the way through again. I don't know. There's options. But I think we'll do Hobbit first, Return of the King second.
Nice.
Love it. I'm excited for you guys to watch The Hobbit.
Me too.
I'm interested, especially since you guys haven't seen it. So I did not have a great experience seeing them the first time. I had a great experience watching them the second time. So I'm interested to hear how that goes for you guys. Because
Nice.
my expectations after this trilogy was very, very high.
Totally.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
I think enough time has passed and my expectations are low enough that I can enjoy it.
Yeah, I hope so. So mine, and if you were listening and heard us talk about The Last Jedi and thought we were done talking about The Last Jedi, we are not. We're bringing it back.
Yes.
And we're bringing it back maybe similar to Tyler's idea of let's show Return of the King first. I know he didn't end up with this, but we'll show Return of the King first, and if you have to go to bed, get out of here. But if you want to enjoy another great movie where different characters split off and all have a big important role to play in their area of the story for everything to come, culminating at the end for a big finish, I would recommend The Last Jedi, which is why I'm showing it second at the Adam Driver Drive-In. And plus, Adam Driver gives me a small cut of the revenue because I'm showing a movie with him in it.
Yeah.
So
I
Awesome.
get it.
I
Trying
have
to
that going.
grease your palms there. I get it.
Yeah.
Free
It's okay. You got kids to feed. I understand.
Awesome. Yeah, and two movies with Andy Serkis too. So
yes.
Oh,
that's true.
There you go.
It's very true.
Yes.
So he died. No, he's died in both.
Yeah,
he died in both.
All right,
See him
cool.
die in
I like
both.
it. So if you hate Andy Serkis, this is the double feature for you.
So if we're doing a triple feature, we'd show Black Panther, and you can watch him die.
There you go.
Time.
There you Yep.
But we're gonna finish off with our Rushmore segment.
These are OR scrubs. Oh, are they?
We really enjoyed this trilogy, and this Return of the King is just like one of the best endings of a trilogy I think ever. It just does such a good job. I don't know how you could. I think one of the reasons why we're so disappointed in the way series end, I think, is in large part due to Return of the King. just because it sticks the landing. It does such a good job. And if you're measuring the way it finishes this trilogy to other things, it's like nothing, like hardly anything is gonna do as well of a job of it as this does. And that's thanks to Peter Jackson, but it's also thanks to J.R.R. Tolkien, who ended his novel in a very great way.
Right.
So tonight we are each picking an end of a trilogy that we felt like is our pick for one that did a really good job of finishing up a trilogy. Best endings to a movie trilogy is what we're calling it. And we will start off once again with our guest Noor-Hal.
Thank you. So, I mean, I'm pretty obvious. I would say my immediate choice would be Return of the King, because, like you said, it's a fantastic ending. But some people is like, like you mentioned, it's hard to compare a lot of endings for both movie trilogies or TV series like Game of Thrones. But and some folks think like, oh yeah, you want your happy ending, your Disney finale, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not that. I mean, you can have Return of the King was a perfect example. Is you can have a satisfactory finale to ending, but you still have soul-crushing moments, because at the end, Frodo leaves with Gandalf. He leaves the Shire, and all the elves, like you see them leaving Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, oh yeah, it was a fantastic. Theoden dies, and you have these moments of sadness, but at the same time, it's a satisfactory ending and happy but it makes sense. That's what I like from the. So that would be my like immediate choice. But another one that I think of course I had to mention something Star Wars and Revenge of the Sith. For talking about the prequels itself as a trilogy, I think the main goal was to show how Anakin Skywalker fell into the dark side. And I think Revenge of the Sith, it is heartbreaking. And I cannot help every time I rewatch it, like, oh, please don't do that. Don't kill, don't go to save Palpatine. But he does.
Every time.
Even if it's every time. But even if he died, he falls to the dark side. And we saw the crushing scene of you were my brother, Anakin, I love you, and Padme dies, but you have that glimpse of hope at the end when you see a new hope is going to come at the end. So I think, of course, my obvious choice would be Return of the King, but then Revenge of the Sith would be there as well.
Love it.
Yeah.
Either way, we're surrounded by lava at the end, so good to go.
There you go. Yeah.
Lava wins here.
Yeah, lava
wins.
I had a hard time deciding, mainly because I had a lot of choices, right? I'm gonna have to go with my instinct here, the one that my gut said when I first thought of this, and I'm gonna go with Before Midnight. And the reason I was hesitant, I love it. I was hesitant to pick it because I felt like it was recency bias, because we just covered it on our show. I mean, fairly recently, we've covered it on our show, I guess. That's where we all discovered it. And so I was like, is this just recency bias? But I really don't think it is. I really love that whole trilogy. I would say that the third movie isn't my favorite of the trilogy. I would say Before Sunset is my favorite. But regardless, the way that it wraps up is just like you were saying about or Return of the King. It's very satisfactory. It seems like real. It's not necessarily, and it's not a happy ending at all. It seems like a logical, reasonable place for that story to go, and a logical place for it to end. And I just love those characters so much, and just the magic of those movies is just something I'm really, really happy that we discovered here on the podcast. So I'll say Before Midnight. There's a lot of great picks you could choose, but that's where I'm going to go.
Nice.
Yeah, for myself, I thought about one of the other trilogies that we did, and I was going to pick The World of Apu, because I think that really tied up that series well. I think that was a surprise for all of us.
Totally.
The character growth, especially at the end of that movie, is so good.
Mhm.
So if nothing else, I want to shout it out, but I'm going to steal one of Tyler's honorable mentions and make it my actual pick, because I think if I'm following my heart, that's what I would go with.
Yeah.
It's Toy Story 3, because man, like
Oh.
I don't remember like computer graphics ever making me cry like that did.
Dude.
Like that final scene, like when he's with the little girl sitting down and stuff like that. Like
Oh.
I was just a mess. It's like, oh my God. Like, and it's crazy because I didn't think like I had that kind of connection to these movies,
Right.
to this like franchise. I'm like, oh yeah, Pixar is fun, Toy Story's great, whatever. But then like that scene happens. I'm like, what is happening to me right now? Why do I feel like this about?
I was in public, man. I was on an airplane. I was like, I had people sitting
crazy.
next
What is
to me.
this water
I was like-
flowing from my eyes?
I think I was
I
only
owned it,
saved because we saw it in 3D, so I had the glasses covering me
Oh,
at
right,
the
right,
time.
right.
Where it's just like, but man, like that, yeah, that is such a satisfactory ending. Like I enjoyed Toy Story 4 is fun. Like you gave me Keanu, I'll show up, but this to me just would have been like the perfect, just be done here. Like that, you
Yeah.
can't top this. Like it was just perfect. I still kind of feel that way. So that's what I would go with, but plenty of great other options. But yeah, definitely want to shout out World of Apu as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that pick.
Yeah.
Mine, similar to Noor-Hal, I'm a Star Wars boy through and through. All my answers have been Star Wars answers basically. So,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Very on brand.
these are intrinsically connected to me because they were like my two trilogies growing up. It's like I had the original Star Wars trilogy, and I enjoyed the prequels as they came out, and they came out around the same time as these movies came out. But I had the original trilogy, that was my main trilogy, and then I got to experience these as they dropped. And for a long time, like when I thought when my taste in movies was very, superficial and surface level, those are my favorite 6 movies, I didn't have a top 10, I had a top 6, and it was those it was those two trilogies. So it's hard for me not to pick Return of the Jedi here. Lucas didn't direct that movie, but the essence of Star Wars is really strong character journeys, and I love where these characters ended up in Return of the Jedi. Just like any Star Wars movie these days, it has its critics, and it's not going to win 11 Academy Awards the way Return of the King did, but you have similar payoffs, in my opinion, to the Aragorn story arc with Luke Skywalker and the way Darth Vader ends. And so, yeah, I gotta give it to Return of the Jedi.
Oh yes.
Got to do it.
Great choice. Yes, definitely.
Thanks.
I knew at least Noor-Hal would agree.
Yeah.
I know. We only have one question, Matt. So
yeah.
Are you prefer Job Knob or Victory Celebration?
Ooh.
So, okay.
How much time do you have?
How much time do you have?
It's like how much hate comments do I want on this video?
Oh.
Look, I understand fans who are irritated at George Lucas for editing his work and changing things and doing all these updates and all that. And you know what? He's the artist, he's the owner, and in my opinion, he can make any of those calls he wants. And I think honestly, in the end, he ended up being right, because when he made those changes with the special editions and all those things, look at what the fan base has become and what that brand has become from that point on. Like if he was wrong, then it wouldn't have grown the way that it did. And you can't argue with what it's become. It's a juggernaut. It's transcended film.
I agree.
And so I think George Lucas, is entitled to those calls. And I personally liked Victory Celebration more.
Yes.
I think it's a cooler ending. Wub Nub is a great little song, and you know what? When I feel like watching that, I still have the luxury of going back and watching that. I can go back and watch the original version if I'm feeling like it.
It's true.
But for my money, give me Victory Celebration every single time. It's a great finale song, and I'll die on that hill.
Nice.
Nice hill to die in. Yeah,
Thanks for bringing that up.
Stick to your convictions,
Good.
Matt.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like you have company
Yes.
on your hill, so you won't be alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plans flag. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come along. I have no opinion. I'm like, sure, if that's where my friends are going. Yeah, let's do victory celebration. I
Let's
don't know.
do it.
Yeah. No, that's great. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode, Noor-Hal. I speak for all of us and say we loved having you on.
Mhm.
We loved being able to talk Return of the King with you, and we'll always have a Star Wars ally on with us anytime we can.
Yep.
Thank you. No,
100%.
thank you for having me. I appreciate
Absolutely.
the invitation. It was a pleasure. And yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic movie to talk about, and also the other movies. And believe me, I've been jotting down some of the movies that I personally haven't finished watching the Before Sunset trilogy. I've seen the first two. And,
Great.
and
Oh, what a treat you're
some
in
of them,
for.
I know, and I love it. My favorite one was Before Sunset, the second one. But
So good.
I definitely love talking films and watching and rewatching. I mean, sometimes I fall into my guilty pleasures, like, yeah, let me rewatch We Are the Millers again just to have a laugh or something.
Believe
Because
me.
sometimes
You guys are getting
you're
paid?
in the mood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Get Adam Warlock in there. I
Yeah.
love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Do you want to give our listeners one last chance to hear where they can find you?
Sure, of course. Thank you for having me. You can find me all on Twitter at Noor-Hal. On my bio, I have a link tree with my different pursuits. As you mentioned, I'm a happy contributor to the Geeky Waffle, which is this fantastic community of geeky fans. I'm a friend and a panelist on the podcast, on live streams, and also a contributor on the website. So definitely check them out at Geeky Waffle, at Geeky_Waffle. So and there's a number of podcasts that we have in the community and the network. So yeah, definitely you're in for a treat. But yeah, thank you. And also my YouTube channel, Noor-Hal, where I upload my acoustic covers and
Oh, nice.
definitely. Thank you
That's
again
awesome.
for having me. Appreciate
Yeah.
No,
it.
thank you so much.
Yeah, after having Candace and Arzu, and now you've been on here, we're collecting Geeky Waffle hosts like Infinity Gauntlet, you know. We're just getting our Infinity Gems.
Growing more powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. That's all we have for tonight, and we will catch you next episode.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.